Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have a few interesting angles to cover in our webinar topic, AI in DAM for Retail, from Trends to Tangible Impact. My name is Magdalena, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager at WoodWing, and I will be the moderator of the webinar today. But before we begin, I'd like to just mention a couple of housekeeping rules. The session is recorded, and we will share the replay with everyone that registered for this webinar who couldn't make it, and of course, everyone that is joining us today live. Throughout the session, you're welcome to ask any questions and submit the questions in the Q&A panel on the side. And of course, with the speakers, we have reserved some time later on to answer those questions. Now let's introduce the speakers. We have Paul Walker, our Product Development Manager at WoodWing, and we have Kristina Huddart, Content Operations and DAM Specialist at Huddart Consulting, and one of the leading voices of the DAM industry. Together, they'll guide you through the opportunities of AI in DAM for the retail industry. But let's briefly go over the agenda for today. So we'll set the scene first with Kristina, of course, and her expert insights from her the state of AI in DAM 2025 research, where she uncovers how retailers are adopting AI and where they're seeing the most impact and potential. Then we will shift gears from trends to real-world examples, and this is where my colleague Paul is going to show what he and his team are working directly with retail organizations and that are using AI in their daily content workflows, and from tagging product images, visual searches, to accelerating the content delivery. So he will actually focus on those real-world use cases and show AI in action. And after these real-world use cases, we will reach the final segment, which is the implementation do's and don'ts. Here our speakers are gonna share their expertise and advice in a conversational format, of course, and on what to do and what to absolutely avoid when embedding AI into your content operations. In the meantime, I'd like to also start a quick poll for everybody that's joining us today. And that's just a brief information and feedback from you on where you are on your AI in DAM journey. That will feed our speakers with material to know where to concentrate and where to focus on within their presentation and use case examples. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Kristina to come on this virtual stage, and of course share her research insights. Thank you for joining, Kristina.
Hi, Magdalena. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and it's so nice to be here with you today. Really appreciate you all joining. As you know, many of you are joining us from retailers. Retail is moving at a very fast pace right now. It's probably fastest thing we've seen since e-com took off many years ago now. And the good news is that retailers are not standing still, as we're seeing in your poll, as you're answering questions here. Many of you are already using AI and looking at leveraging many of these tools. So let's take a quick look at what's accelerating in retail and why it's accelerating. So AI is exploding in retail because actually we see three different forces that are converging. So we've got consumers who are expecting and demanding now personalization, right? Anytime that we go shopping online, I think all of us do this, we're expecting that personalized experience. I think a few years ago it might have been a little bit creepy, but now it's we've become used to it, and also we realize that it's helping us to get better recommendations. 69% of us report that we like the personalized recommendations, and it's making our shopping easier, quicker, and we're getting better products for it. So it's the consumers who are demanding that we personalize at scale, and this is one of the reasons that AI is accelerating. Then we have the pressure from staff, right? As those of us who are working in retail and creating content and launching campaigns and going to market with new products, we rely now on AI to help us to do more faster. A recent study from NVIDIA said that 9 out of 10 companies are already using AI in their operations. We're seeing this as you're answering the question in the poll. 71% of us say that we need AI to help us to launch campaigns faster. And a study by Cornell University in the US said that we can become 1.6 times more productive in our content creation workflows by using AI. So there's a lot of data behind this, and there's a lot of reason why we are so quickly adopting AI. And then the third piece of this puzzle are the tech partners, right? Our tech partners are building AI into every single platform that we use in our workflows. And I just want to say a huge thank you to our SaaS vendors like WoodWing, who are developing our core technologies so quickly. I mean, the releases are coming hot and fast. And AI, being able to have AI in our core systems is an amazing way for us to leverage AI. And we're seeing this across all of our systems, whether it's CMS, CDP, CRM, but of course also the DAM. So we see these three forces converging. We have demand from our customers, demand for AI from staff, and demand or provisioning of AI from our tech partners. So that's why we're moving really, really fast in retail with AI. So now the question is, how is AI already being used in the retail space? And what is working well? So hopefully this is not a surprise to any of you. Let's start with digital twins. If you haven't heard about digital twins, absolutely go check out some amazing work that's being shared by all sorts of different companies who are using this. This is, I think, one of the most exciting shifts that we are making because of AI. So if you don't know, digital twins is the ability for retailers to create 3D renditions or mock-ups of our products. And they call it twins because it's almost pixel perfect. So it's like having the product in your hand. You can turn it in all directions. You can put it in a scene. You can use these digital twins for not only campaign creation, packaging, previews, but also for e-commerce photo shoots. And the brilliant part about this is because we can do this with AI at scale, right? We could do this before AI as well, but now we can actually do it at scale over hundreds and thousands of products. This means that we can now start our campaign production much earlier. So as marketers, we're not waiting for the factory to send us the products and waiting for it to be shipped across the world potentially, or waiting for the right photo scene or setup. We can do this all virtually using our digital twins. So it's saving us a lot of time and money and travel as well. So for a lot of my clients and also brands with many SKUs, like Nestle, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Moet Hennessy, and Estee Lauder, the ability to have digital twins and using AI to create digital twins very quickly, this is removing weeks from our timelines. And I would say it's pretty green, right? It's a bit more sustainable than flying around the world to do shoots and also to ship products, although there is some obviously quite a bit of environmental impact from AI as well. But it's definitely more efficient, and it gives brands that head start before the product even exists. So if it's a TikTok trend today, we can start the campaign immediately. Now, a few other things that we're seeing happening in the retail space with AI are that we see e-commerce companies using AI for brand perfect assets or checks, right? This is where we can now train our AI large language models on our brand specifically. That's your brand voice, your visual identity, your brand guidelines, basically your brand DNA. And this is what Unilever is doing. There's a great example from Unilever that they've shared widely, so go look it up. They've basically created a separate mini dam system called DNA-I, where they hold all of their absolutely perfect, verified on-brand assets, as well as all of the metadata, the high quality metadata that goes with those assets. And they only train their AI tools on this DNA-I subset of assets, right? We want to make sure we're not training AI with any data that's not on brand, completely finalized, and 100% correct with high quality metadata. So they're able to do this by putting it into a separate training subset. Another thing that we can do is localization at scale. And this is where AI really gets its superpower for retail, right? Retailers now want Amazon specific crops. You want an Aldi specific layout, a Carrefour positioning of the product on the image. You want regional compliance copy, different seasonal colors. There's so many variations that we need. This list is endless. And with AI, we can now scale much quicker than we ever could before. So we can create hundreds, if not thousands, of retail-ready variations, which was just too time-consuming to do before. And so previously, we may have put the same product pack shot onto all of our retail sites, but now we can really specialize and localize at scale. And finally, I think this is kind of an under the radar use of AI. It's not as glitzy and glammy as the generative AI production is, but AI for decision making is, I think, the secret superpower of AI, right? This is using AI to mine our big data. Now that we're doing localization at scale, that means we have 10, 100 times the amount of content that we had before. So that's a lot more data coming in. And then how do we get the right insights from that data to really understand which of our marketing assets is performing well, which is getting the most engagement, and which is most effective, so that we can feed that information and those insights back into the beginning of the process and go back to strategic planning for next year, let's say, which many of you may be doing at this moment. So what AI is allowing us to do this with big data, and we can now answer questions that we could never answer before, which is things like, which hero images are converting the best? Does yellow perform better in summer? Or should we lead our retail page with a lifestyle shot or a pure pack shot for this retailer? And AI is able to help us do that now. So these exciting AI-driven innovations, we're all, I think, probably itching to do this if we're not doing this already. These innovations really only happen when the foundational technologies in our content tech stacks are actually mature enough to support them. So I want you to think about, could you do any of these things with AI today, or would you need to really reconsider, do we have all the right tech in place? And do we have the right data and the right brand assets in place to do any of these things? So let's zoom in now on the AI adoption through the lens of what I think of as the heartbeat of our content, our DAM systems, right? This is how we organize and manage and structure and govern content This is a real clear indicator of how ready you are as an organization to actually leverage AI and use it properly. So the dam is a great place to start with AI. So what we're seeing in the market in 2025 is that AI adoption in DAM isn't really happening very evenly across all industries, but it's following this really familiar adoption curve that we see for all technologies and all changes. So on the right-hand side, you've got the companies that are adopting AI quickly, and you can see retailers and e-com right there in the middle. Alongside, we've got creative agencies, media and entertainment, and technology companies, which, as you might expect, are adopting very, very quickly. And this makes sense, right? These are the industries that have high volumes of content, short deadlines, and they need to deliver great customer experiences. And just a note, this data comes directly from my annual research initiative, the State of AI in DAM and Content Operations. I'll give you a download link in a moment. Now, one of the questions that we researched in this research was, if AI could do anything for you in your DAM and how you manage content, what would you want it to do? And this is what organizations like yourselves told us. These are the items on your AI and DAM 2025 wish list. A bit like your Christmas wish list, if only there was a content Santa who could help us to bring all of our wishes come true this year. So firstly, you've got automating tagging and metadata management, followed very closely by improved search and discovery. So there's no surprise here, right? We all want to be able to tag our content more effectively and quicker, right? This is often a bottleneck in our processes, and we want to make sure it's not error prone. And then we also want to be able to find our content much quicker and better. And now with AI and computer vision, we can now use natural language search and processing to really ask your DAM, okay, help me find assets or that campaign that we did on that tropical island with the product in the blue bottle, right? This was much harder to do before AI and natural language search. So love that for our DAM systems. We also want to have automated workflows and resource management. Think about automated routing to the right person, right? AI first rounds of approval where AI checks the asset, is it on brand before it goes for final sign off, and smart notifications and support to reduce all of the bottlenecks that we naturally have in many of our workflows. And then also on the top 5 of your wish list for this year are to measure content effectiveness and get predictive analytics. Let's use AI and all of this data that we have to really predict which products are going to fly off the shelves and which creative campaigns are going to give us the best return on investment. And we also want to use AI for security, compliance, and reporting automation. This is where the biggest risks are. And it's also quite difficult. We know that rights management and tracking are incredibly difficult to do, especially manually, now that we have so much content. These are often repetitive and mundane tasks that AI is great at. So we can send AI out to do our tracking and checking and reporting, and then we can, as humans in the loop, can manage what we do with that information. So I'm happy to say that Paul is here to be your content Santa today and to share how WoodWing is making this wish list come true for you. But before I hand over to Paul, I just wanted to share the research from this year, the State of AI in DAM and Content Operations 2025 report. If you haven't seen it yet, do come and download the research. And for all of you who download the report from this year, you will automatically get a notification or an invitation to be a contributor for next year. So I'm going to be opening up contributions for the research in January. So please come and share your experience with AI, whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter. We want to hear all aspects of it and get involved with the research. So thank you all, and I'm just going to pass over to Paul now.
Thank you, Kristina. That was some great insights and really good points on digital twinning. What I'm going to cover today is not digital twinning. It's a fantastic area to explore, and we've been helping retailers on that for many, many years now, and I think it's worthy of a webinar all in its own right. So what I'm going to talk about today is AI in retail, and specifically the use of commissioned photography and how you can help shorten time to market, reduce that time, and make better choices. So, and we're really going to be leaning into some of the things that Kristina has already touched on, so I'll kind of highlight those as we go. So first of all, let's kind of look at the kind of very typical retail asset workflow. I think most of you are probably familiar with this. We have ingest, enrichment, discovery, prepare, and apply. So first of all, ingest, the state of acquiring material from either commissioned works or your external partners. Enriching, AI lives and dies by data. And so AI is not going to take that away. And how you kind of do that application and validation of data, the more you can do that with accuracy, the better your downstream results will be. So, and again, we'll be touching on those points. Discover. So this is where it's great having all of these assets. We deal with clients who have millions upon millions of images, and daily they are acquiring more and processing them. If you can't find them, then there's a problem. And again, AI can help with this matter. Preparing. Now, this is kind of one of the key parts that you can burn a lot of time. Doesn't matter whatever you get the image in, you have to slice and dice it and prepare it for yourself for consumption within your organization, and then apply it out the door to your many channels. It could be social media, it could be your website, it could be print. But also the application is for your other partners. You might be dealing with some international third-party partners who also want to utilize your material, but want to lean on you to help prepare it. So really what that means is there's a lot of pressure on your workflow. At every step of the way, what you're trying to do with the people that you have, you could bring more people in, you have training to do, and it's bandwidth that can be the problem. And shortening that time to market as soon as you get it in. For retail, it's especially very crystal. Doesn't matter how many boxes of the product you have in the warehouse. If the picture's on the website, you can't sell it. So this is the place where as soon as you get an image through, processing that, getting it out the door on your house style as quickly as possible can mean the difference of, a lot of money on the bottom line. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at kind of three core pieces today. So the first one is enrichment. So when we're looking at enrichment, as images kind of come in, it's adding that valuable metadata. And the first one is just using simple tagging. In a minute, I'll be showing you a little video, which just kind of gives you a taster of tagging. And this is where you can pass your image to one of many AI services out there that will look at your image and interpret what's there and give you back some of that information. Now, I think we've all heard the term hallucination. Sometimes we have to be careful. So we need to validate that information. Equally, we might be given a photograph by an external party or the photographer and says, yes, I've put the file name in there and this says it's a coat, it's a jacket, when in actual fact it might be a pair of trousers. So validating that, we've had clients previously where, timescales are short, people rush, people make mistakes. So you can use AI that when you kind of apply this tagging, that can validate, yes, I can see a jacket. Yes, it's a white spotty dress and the spots are blue, to help make sure that before you go downstream, that at least you've had that kind of check. I'm just going to give you a kind of a quick show about that, the video with tagging, before we then move on to kind of other areas. So let me just tie up that video and I'll be back in 30 seconds. So there was a quick demonstration. Throw images into the AI and say one of many. And the key thing to watch is different AIs lean in different ways and see what tags that they get back. So we can provide processes where, if there's a particular preference, Google, Amazon, Clarify, many produce different AIs that we can hook into. And then there's also kind of scoring, it's like, well, only if you're absolutely sure you see this particular product, please let me know. If you're uncertain, 80% and lower, I'm not interested. So we can use information to use AI to get that tag, compare it to a taxonomy that we have, and then apply it to the assets on the way in. We've already talked about checking with product. But AI can do so much more at this early stage. The first one is checking resolution. We work with clients where they work with some fairly big partners, and the bigger the partner, the least willing they are to work with you because they work with so many people. And sometimes the images that are available aren't high enough. Well, AI can be used to up the resolution. And, these days it's getting really, really good. Obviously, you do have to kind of watch where it kind of guesses. But for most systems where you get something in and you're looking for that kind of high, nudging the resolution up and doing it with AI can be really, really good. Data. So again, using this where you're matching data with your asset, being able to kind of scrape data from PIMs, from other different sources, and being able to say, well, I've got these images, I've got this data, and then kind of bringing those together. Again, many times you can sit with humans trying to do this, but you can use AI to kind of bring that closer, quicker, and more accurately. One of the other things we have is relating. So relating assets together and having that where you can have AI look at those pieces and say, well, actually, I believe they're from the same photo shoot. I have a kind of another video to show, which will dovetail into kind of searching. I'll show that in a moment, but you might notice there's a kind of a box underneath, translation. Quite often, one of the things we get asked is, I have tags, I have metadata, but I have many different territories I'm servicing. Can we have tags in different languages? You can. But then there's a thing called kind of overstuffing with tags. And I've put this in a dotted box because with AI, we can search and we can do this differently. I think, Kristina touched on this a little bit earlier. And rather than kind of pre-building into your metadata all the translations, far better to kind of stick with one language and then use AI as an expression of that out the door for different people to then use different, because how many different languages are there? And currently you might be working with 5 territories, 5 different languages, and then there's another 5. Do you go back over your assets and add more languages? Well, the answer really should be no, because you're now doing work for kind of no reason. AI can help with this, but this more in the discovery phase. So if we skip on to kind of the next piece. So you've got your assets, you brought them in, you've enriched them, you've brought your PIM data in, you've brought data from external sources, and you've used AI to help enrich. Now this is where you can discover what you have. So your brand managers, your marketing people can come onto your DAM and ask questions and search in a natural language form. So previously DAMs would rely on the tags and the metadata that you've added. Now you can elevate that and you can start talking in a kind of a natural language form using AI to discover your materials, just like you do with ChatGPT these days and the way you talk to it. So this is kind of the next evolution of finding assets in DAM using AI. We also have visual search. Now I'm just going to kind of touch on this. So we looked at relating assets together earlier. So I was talking about kind of trying to bind those together. This there's another video which kind of touches on this. So we'll just watch this. There's a couple of minutes video. Here's another example of AI in DAM. So here we have a whole load of product images, all seemingly uploaded at random. As we scroll through, so this currently is sorted by the date it was imported, and we find an image that we think, this is exactly the thing that I'm after. But there could be other images from the photo shoot that were uploaded, could have been uploaded at different times. And essentially you want to find if there's any similar. So this is where visual search comes in. So it's not looking at metadata, it's actually looking at the image itself and looking for anything that might be similar. So here I've selected the image and we click on visual search, and so simple little interface. So percentage score, if I was going for 100%, it would find exact matches. Am I looking for duplicates? Could be a different resolution, but essentially an exact match. How many do I want back? In this case, as low as possible, 50 will do. And I'm going to do a quick search. So now that I've done a search, it's going to return me to a tab. And as we see here, it's actually returned me the similar images from that very same photo shoot. So now I can gather those together, select those, pass them down the workflow and on to be part of a product. This is a great example of how AI can help, especially with discovery. Thank you very much. So there's a good way in which you can find images. Now, when you are looking at the next piece, so part of discovery is also insights. You can use AI to scan your product and say, do I have all the necessary images to move on? So as a buyer, I'm very, very conscious that if I put a singular image up, my sales might be this much. If I have 5 images up, my sales might be greatly increased because the consumer can see my product in more detail. Now, the fact is, I might have actually taken one image and cropped it several times, a close crop, to kind of show a little bit more detail, color chips or close crop on different pieces. Therefore, more images for the user to consume. But generally speaking, the more images you have for a consumer to kind of look at, there is a direct correlation on bottom line sales. So as a buyer, do we have the necessary images for me to release this? Is this something that I need to push to the repo house, push back to the photographers? Where's the other images? I can search, as we've kind of seen, are the images there? I'm sure we had 5 images. So this is kind of really kind of good insights that you have. Equally, you can have inform, hey, when we get anything that is of this style product, new jackets, please let me know. So as a marketer, you might think, well, we're approaching winter, I'm after coats. Any coat image that comes in, please let me know about it. I'm interested in coats, long length coats. So again, you can use AI, and you can use AI to kind of say, well, I'm interested in coats with a bit of space to the left-hand side, please, because I want to add some marketing text. So these are the great ways in which, not just from the kind of the basic image search, but then more detailed questions that you can ask, or different departments within your organization can ask and say, well, I'm after this. As soon as it appears, I don't have to go find it. Let the image come to me. So that's a really great way of using AI to speed the process up. and have the material automatically float to the people that need it most. So let's look at process. So this is the next stage in the process of now we need to do something physically to the image. So first of all, there's reproduction work. From color grading, recolor. Do I have the white jacket? Well, no, I don't. I've got the blue one. I've got the green one. I'm going to need to recolor that product because I'm not going to go and commission another photo shoot just for that one color. I can repurpose these images again. Cropping. Cropping is a really big one that kind of pops up time and time and again. It's very labor intensive, and sometimes people, or we've heard clients kind of take an easy route in cropping because it takes too long, and ideally they would like a house style. Got a little video to show you on that a little bit later. We have informed selection. So as well as AI helping color grade, recolor, cropping, it can also help you your camera roll. So being able to analyze and pick, you might have 200 images from the photo shoot. Out of those, I've had AI trained on my own material. What's the likely choices I'm going to make as a user, as a buyer on those? And if I can have AI suggest that, and you still keep a human in the loop to then validate and go, yep, that's a good choice. Or do you know what? The third one, I wouldn't have picked that. I'll pick this one instead. So this is, again, where we're using AI as a tool. It shortens that time and essentially brings to the user a kind of a preset of material and say, how about this? I'm suggesting this. Are you okay with that? And as you grow, you've got buyers who really know their stuff, really have been kind of out in the world, brought together the boots, the scarves, whatever product it might be. And having them make that kind of final choice is always going to be important. But narrowing that down, you don't want to have them spending time on looking through all these products. You want them to use this and say, here we go, please help us make this choice. And then you feed that back into the loop. So this is something where, from my part, insights here is, we've got a kind of final slide we'll end on, which kind of shows this, is AI is not a one-way process. You take your results, you bring it back to the beginning again, and you go again, you improve the cycle. So we'll touch more on that. AI is also useful for planning. So we've found that some of our clients, they've got photo shoots trying to work out the best way. And traditionally, you've got various, from Monday to Asana to a whole host, and using AI to say, well, I need these photographed. These are the most important. This is what I've got in stock right now. Can we do all of our jumpers together, because it reduces that time, saves a lot of cost in that kind of organization. And using AI to take this data and the requirements for the business, for repro work, for photography work, for kind of still work in the studio, and reduce this into, here's your plan, this is the most efficient to go through. That's, again, something that AI has been really, really good for. So I'm just going to show you a little video now about AI cropping. And this kind of came from working with retail clients for, over a decade now, in how can we crop the many, many product images that we have in quicker? How can we make sure that we can have a house style? How can we then push this to our external clients where they're asking us to do all of the work? We can't just push them some source images and say, hey, you do it. They want it pre-prepared and ready to go themselves, but they want it in their own style. And then as the business changes, the marketing team says, right, for 2026, we've now got this style that we want to introduce for cropping, market says. So it's all about that kind of process on how we kind of do that. So it's a little 5-minute video, and it kind of just shows you kind of a flavor of what we can do. A lot of this we actually automate via API. There's just an interface to, again, just to explain. So let's take a look at that. Everybody, I'm Paul Walker, and today I'm going to take you through AI cropping. in WoodWing assets. So first of all, you have a lot of images flowing into DAM of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And what you need to do is apply your house style into the cropping. Now, it might not just be your house style. Also, as you outgest images to other brands, they might want to take your product but have their own style to that, and they might want you to provide that for them. So what I'm going to do today is take you through a kind of just a simple view of the process of how we can use AI to achieve that. So first of all, though this could be done at mass via API, I'm going to show you through a simple little front end we have here. So here's our image. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to generate labels, and we'll see here in a moment, it's going to give me a quick view of what it's found. So this is just a kind of a quick assist of here's what it's found. Now, I'm just going to delete these images here because I wanted to show you this in real time, what we're going to do. So what we have here is a set of options by which we are pushing the AI to make a choice based on the style. So these are kind of the presets by which we say, this is our preference. So for example, first thing I'm going to do is show you the boxes. So very simply, it's found 2 products, a handbag, coat in this instance, and we've also got the full body shot. What we're going to do now is we're going to say, well, I could save that as a preset, but I want to start creating this kind of house preset. So first thing that we could have done is say, yes, I'm after the full image, or no, I'm after the woman. So I'm looking for the woman. My shot is 2:3. I'm interested in a center. So really, I want that piece to be kind of in the center. Is there any focus offsets? We could go to town on kind of loading these up. We're just going to take a kind of a simple view for now. And then from there, I'm going to create my crop. And what you see here now is it's focused the woman in the center. The bag is off to the side, so she is the main focus. I've removed some of the redundant space that's required, and it's kind of giving me that shot. So had I applied this en masse to a whole heap of images, this is what we could have achieved. Now, equally, because it's found a handbag in there, and through matching up metadata, you go, yes, we don't actually have a separate photograph of the bag by itself. So can we use this image to generate the bag? So this is where we can then come back and we can say, well, I'm looking at the handbag. I want this to be a center focus again, or I could want it aligned to the bottom because I always like bags aligned to the bottom. And again, I could be looking at a 2:3 because my main search image is always 2:3, for example. So I'm not going to do anything else. Create my crop for this, and here is my bag. So this is very, very simply how we can use AI to identify product, match this with our PIM, and save it. If I wanted to add padding, we could add padding to this, but essentially what we're doing is we're using this to kind of create a model for our house branded style. What we can then also do is we can reapply different styles to this by then saying, well, I need this to go to Zalando. I need this to go to another third-party partner, and they have a different requirement of style. So they might have square, and I can create my crop and I get my square image. There are lots of other things that we could do. If there's not enough image space on here, we can pass this through to other AI models that might extend the background, or extend, if it's just plain color, extend the plain color, change the plain color. But here is where we can generate mass images based on the images that you've got in, and reduce it to a normalized style so that you can remain on point and do this as quickly as possible. And then if your brand house style changes, very quickly being able to go back through your current estate, and regenerate those specifically for your new requirements. Thank you for watching. Cool. And what I'm going to finally end with is you don't stop. So you've gone through ingest to apply, out the door. You can use AI to then harvest the results, see how the assets are being used, see what are used, what are not used, and use those to inform your AI models from enrichment to discovery and preparation. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back off to Kristina.
Thanks so much, Paul. That was a really great look at all of the exciting things that we can do with AI straight in our DAM systems, and connected to that real workflow. So I was just looking back at the poll that all of you answered, and I can see that 56% of you are here today because you're researching potential use cases of AI and DAM. And I hope you got some great inspiration from what Paul just showed us about all the different elements and problems that you could solve within your DAM directly on your content. So we wanted to talk a little bit now as well about what are the do's and don'ts that separate successful AI implementations from companies who kind of get stuck in the experimentation and endless loop of AI pilots. And one of my biggest do's is to make sure that you start with business objectives and strategies, right? Before you run out and use new AI technologies and start experimenting, especially as your company. If you want to go off and experiment on your own, by all means, I do encourage that. The more we know, the better we're going to be at this. But from a company perspective, you really want to take a step back and think about, why are we doing this? And from the research, we could see that the top 3 reasons that companies are exploring using AI and automation are to do things faster, to do things cheaper, and then to do things better. And I think that number 3, doing things better, is really where we're going to see this shifting in 2026. All companies are now using AI for faster and cheaper, right? That's table stakes now. What we want to do with AI to shift our companies and be more competitive is to do things better and to do things differently. So let's really think about your strategies internally and why you're using AI. So really start with that why. For example, we need to improve our brand awareness for our European audience between the ages of 21 and 30, right? That is a business objective. That's measurable, that's understandable. And then you can think about how can we use AI and automation to actually get there. So really start with that why before you just jump into, hey, maybe we should use ChatGPT because everybody else is using it. And then we also wanted to share with you these 6 steps that we've created on how to get started if you're not sure. So firstly, if you're starting out with AI, definitely start with that why, like we just talked about, that strategy. Tie everything back to your strategic objectives. If you're going out to use AI for reasons that don't link back to your business objectives, then you're going to be spending a lot of time and effort that will be wasted. Make sure to assess your organizational readiness, assemble that cross-functional team, run safe experiments, and everything that Paul just showed you, these are great examples of safe experiments. If it's already baked into your systems where you have guardrails and security and access controls, that's going to be a pretty safe place for you to get started. So for example, you could test out that AI tagging in your test environments. Again, make sure it's in a safe space. So test environment is always better than a prod environment. You can test out those translations. And like Paul mentioned, just because we can do something like translations on all of our keywords doesn't mean that we necessarily should. So this is why experimenting before you jump in into that investment or implementation is really, really important. Then make sure to go back and quickly evaluate what other AI tools are available on the marketplace. So for example, last week we just had a really gigantic shift in people who, a lot of companies are using OpenAI as their foundational large language model for AI work. But now suddenly Google Gemini with their Nano Banana content generation tool has really taken the lead. And now companies are thinking, oh gosh, should we look at Google Gemini because they're doing some things that we can't do right now with OpenAI. So make sure to always keep an eye out on the full marketplace and really understand what are the alternatives and what else you could be using. And then always make sure to operationalize and govern your AI. So before you say, okay, everybody, now we're using this tool, make sure to think about change management. How is the AI going to be trained? What are the governance policies and the guardrails to make sure that we keep the organization's information safe and our IP within our own organization? Okay, just a quick one about fixing the foundations before automating, right? This is the idea that our content, we're in this content volume paradox now. We can quickly create a lot of content, 50, 100, 1,000 variants very quickly in seconds. But the reality is that AI is going to accelerate whatever you feed it. So it's going to scale content, even if it's bad content, right? So think back to the example I gave right at the beginning of Unilever. They are hiving off a separate subset of assets that are their brand DNA, and they're building that into a separate mini DAM area called DNAi, and that is what they're using to train their AI. So that's a great example of using the right data. And to do that, you want a single source of the truth. So we did see in the poll that 28% of you are not even using AI in DAM yet. Hopefully all of you have DAM in your organizations. If you don't have a DAM system or that single source of the truth, definitely start there. Make sure, I'm working with a lot of clients right now who are coming to me to say, we want to use AI, but we realize that we don't have the right tools in place, or our data is dirty, or we're not really sure what to do with our usage rights because they're not always clear. And that's where I want to start, right? Make sure we clean that up and get the foundations right, have the right tools in place before we layer on AI on top of that. And remember, this is going to translate directly to the bottom line, because 64% of consumers lack confidence in AI privacy and the content that we're putting out that is AI generated. So we need to make sure that we have proper governance and brand controls in place internally so that we can build that trust with our customers, and we're not breaking that trust. I mean, a good example is the Coca-Cola ad that just came out. For the second year in a row, they've generated it using AI, and there's been some real controversy there. And they're an amazing brand, but there's a lot of questions around whether they're breaking some of that trust and confidence that their customers have in their products. And just when we move to some of the don'ts, I want to just bring Paul back on stage. Paul, are you still there?
I'm still here.
There we go. All right. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the don'ts. I know we only have a few minutes left, but I think you have some great examples here to touch on. So can you tell us a little bit about treating DAM as an archive or an island?
Yes, quite often we've had kind of clients approach us and say, I'm looking for an archive for DAM. And really, DAM at its best is kind of work in progress. So from the moment something is kind of thought of in inception, even like from a placeholder, all the way through to the end, DAM is that entire workflow. And it's really good for insights. If you've got your material being gathered and worked on inside DAM and, checked out, worked in the Adobe products, whatever products, checked back in again, that helps collect the data in a single place and give AI something to look at and use, and then also start suggesting. And if you only have it at the end of your workflow, you really lose out on a lot of good insights that AI can give you.
Absolutely. And I think this is a really interesting one to stop on as well, because we see a lot of AI implementations go wrong. There's a statistic that says that every change or transformational change initiative, out of all of them, 70% of them will fail. Right, and these are just some of the reasons or some of the ways that we see organizations going wrong when they're looking at implementing AI in their DAM systems and applying it to their content. So definitely think outside of the box. And make sure to think holistically, right? So we're not talking about DAM as this island anymore. We're really talking about it as the single source of truth for all of our content, not just the imagery. And then also it has a role to play in tracking metrics. And even after content leaves the DAM and goes to our delivery channels, we want to make sure that the DAM is still there to help us to track those metrics. So definitely a lot here to think about. And then finally, we just wanted to remind you all, we've talked a lot about the technology today, and we're seeing some really great innovation, but humans, all of you, are at the heart of this business transformation. I always like to say that technology is only a tiny piece of the puzzle, very important piece of the puzzle, but it's the people, the process, and the data that are needed to really make any of these changes successful. So for all of you who maybe are a little bit worried about your jobs, I honestly don't think that the machines are going to take over. But we need to make sure that all of us stay engaged. We stay, up to date on all of the changes that are happening and enabled, so that we can be the humans in the loop that we're talking about in all of these processes.
Absolutely, and I second that. It's always human in the loop. Calculators come along. We no longer have to do, pen and paper maths. AI is the same. It gives us more time to validate what we're doing, help make those choices. And AI is a tool. It's not going to get rid of people. I think it's just going to help the people that's there do more.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be with you all. And I'm going to hand back over to Magdalena.
Thank you. Big thanks to our speakers as well for sharing such tangible insights, especially, of course, Paul. We've gone from the big picture, the trends, of course, to hands-on use cases, and then a real implementation guidance for all the retailer organizations that are joining us today. We have a minute left, but I'd like to ask one question to Kristina, because majority of the questions we received, I believe, already are covered by Paul. Kristina, if you could correct one misconception retailers have about AI, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, right? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions floating around. But one of the things that I get asked a lot is, oh, can we just kind of sprinkle some AI on top of it and it's going to be magic and it will work. It will transform the way that we work. And I think that's a major misconception, right? Yes, we see everybody's talking about AI, everywhere we go. And our leadership are saying we need to use AI. But like we talked about with the, start with the why and the strategy, because just investing in some AI technology doesn't mean it's going to solve any of the problems that you have. And also, remember to bring the people along in the process. We see companies do this all the time, not just with AI, but with other tools, is to start with the technology and really say, okay, we're going to buy this tech. Here's the new thing. Please use it. But actually, if the people and the process and the data are not aligned, that's not going to be the best return on investment. So definitely start with that why and think about your use cases first.
Yes, thank you. And one last thing for Paul, what's the most surprising use case you've seen in retail, and something that really teams didn't expect that AI can handle so well?
I think it was the advent of kind of tagging on images, and it being able to correctly identify objects, and then from there start cropping. Quite often we found image preparation has been the biggest consumer of time for retailers, and to find that big piece can be reduced, I think has been the kind of the biggest surprise for them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you both for your time and for your valuable insights shared with the community of WoodWing and everybody interested. Again, this live recording is going to be available to everyone that registered on the sign-up form for the webinar, and of course, live on our website in a couple of days as an on-demand webinar, because these use cases are actually something that I believe is really an evergreen content probably for the next couple of months for the retail industry. Thank you both, lovely speakers. Hope to see you again soon, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.